A young boy in his school uniform sits alone in the classroom on a quiet school day. It's early in the morning, and none of the other students have arrived yet. The empty seats around him will soon be filled by his classmates. He focuses on his notebook, carefully studying one of the topics they've been taught at school. But after a few minutes, frustration begins to set in as the material feels too complex for him to grasp. He starts blaming his classmates in his mind, calling them a group of wicked individuals for understanding what seems so difficult for him. He wonders how any student like him could find this easy. Still trying his best, burying his head in the book, he doesn't notice when Anjou enters the room. Anjou, a female classmate he knows for her playful and flirtatious nature, drops her bag on her desk. Without hesitation, she moves to the seat in front of him, starting with a casual greeting. Trying to disturb him, Anjou starts by asking Sito if he watched the trending movie from yesterday. He simply replies with a no, as he isn't really a movie person. Without waiting for any interest from him, she eagerly begins narrating the movie, describing how she ended up watching it in her room. Sito, still focused on his notes, listens half-heartedly as she rambles on. But soon, she fixates on one specific scene, describing it in great detail. A scene involving the two leading actors in an intimate moment, hinting heavily at what she calls the procedures that lead to reproduction. Anjou doesn't stop there, even adding that more characters joined in the scene, as if it was some kind of wild group activity. Sito feels uneasy as she emphasizes how the movie really intrigued her while watching it last night. Though he didn't ask for this kind of information, Sito knows Anjou well enough to realize that if he tells her to stop or points out how uncomfortable he feels, she might take it the wrong way, or worse, pick a fight with him. So, he endures her talk, quietly hoping she'll get bored and move on to something else. Sito is the kind of person who doesn't want to face Anjou's wrath or see her disappointed expression. He listens as she continues her story, mentioning that after the intense scene, many characters end up dying because it's a horror movie filled with blood and survival drama. Then, out of nowhere, she asks Sito if he has ever kissed anyone before. Sito is caught off guard by the sudden question, but manages to keep his cool. He responds calmly, no. Without hesitation, Anjou, with her usual playful smirk, climbs on her chair and leans over toward him, saying she wants to give him his first kiss right now. Even though Sito feels a surge of excitement, he tries to act indifferent, unsure how to handle the situation. Anjou tells him to close his eyes, and he does, his heart pounding. With his eyes shut, he imagines what a kiss might feel like, wondering how soft her lips will be. But just as he's about to experience it, something hard presses against his lips. Startled, he quickly opens his eyes and sees that Anjou has placed her hand over his mouth, laughing at her prank. She never intended to kiss him, just messing with him as usual. Disappointment wells up inside Sito, and he's about to tell her how unfair her joke is when other classmates start filing into the room. It's a group of girls, Anjou's friends, to be precise. Sito bites his tongue, realizing the moment has passed. Saying anything now would only make things worse, and once again, Anjou has left him flustered, unable to respond. As Anjou's friends enter the classroom, they're surprised to see her there so early. She's not exactly known for being an early bird at school. Once they settle into their seats, Anjou quickly moves over to their side of the table, asking them the same question she asked Sito about the trending movie, knowing they had watched it too. Their conversation shifts entirely to the movie, filling the room with chatter and laughter, leaving Sito sitting quietly at his desk. It's only after she's gone that Sito realizes Anjou was just using him to pass the time until her friends arrive. All that playful teasing, the questions about the movie, even her fake concern about how his studying was going. It was all just her pretending to care. She had no real interest in what he was doing. He sighs, feeling like a pawn in her game, but knowing Anjou, it wasn't a surprise. Sito is in the restroom, methodically cleaning the sink and toilet as part of the end-of-day routine that every student is required to follow. He's alone, concentrating on making the sink spotless. After a few minutes of effort, he finally achieves a neat, polished look and steps back, feeling a small sense of accomplishment. Suddenly, he hears footsteps behind him, which seems odd since he expects no one else to be around. Before he turns, the sound of someone approaching makes him uneasy. When he looks back, he's startled to see Anjou walking into the boys' restroom. He's caught off guard, knowing she shouldn't be there. Anjou moves toward him confidently, acting as if nothing is unusual. Sito is surprised not only by her presence, but by how casually she seems to treat it, as if entering the male restroom is something she does regularly. He wonders why she has come to meet him here of all places, especially when it's supposed to be a quiet, routine task for him. Anju explains that she's bored, adding that she's already finished cleaning her part of the restroom. Sito looks at her with growing unease. Fear creeps in because if other students see a girl in the boys' restroom, especially dressed the way Anju is, provocatively as usual, they might jump to all the wrong conclusions. Her outfit, designed to catch attention, only heightens his discomfort. Yet, he knows he has no authority to tell her how to dress, no matter how anxious the situation makes him. Still feeling tense, Sito asks her again, this time more seriously, what she's really doing there. Anju shrugs off the question, repeating that she's bored and decided to come see him. Her tone is casual, but Sito's unease only deepens. He's fully aware that if anyone walks in now, they might assume the worst, especially given the way she's dressed and the fact that they're alone in a place no one expects them to be. Without missing a beat, Anju teases him, suggesting that if anyone does walk in, they'll probably think they're doing what couples do in secret places. Her words make Sito even more nervous, and he awkwardly asks what exactly she means. Anju just smirks and refuses to answer directly, saying he knows what she's implying. Sito hears footsteps, probably from his classmates, walking over to their side. He needs to hide Anju by laying on top of her in a horizontal manner. As he does this, he notices her figure more clearly and finds himself breathing in her scent because he is now closer to her, just trying to keep her hidden from the others. Even though the classmates who arrive are boys, they don't see Sito and Anju in the restroom because they are a bit distant from where they are. The two boys come in to use the facilities, chatting about how they have always managed to avoid cleaning the sinks, unlike some other students. They joke that it's the inexperienced students who clean the toilets, claiming they are the smart ones who escape management. But Anju, overhearing this, wants to make them jealous. She shouts in a playful, romantic manner, mimicking the way couples sound when they are being intimate. The boys are surprised to hear Anju's sound, so they climb up to take a peek. When they look in, they are shocked to see Sito and Anju. They see Sito lying on top of her, even though nothing is happening. However, since they see Sito in that position, they assume the two are acting like a couple. The boys quickly climb down and try to run away, thinking about what they just witnessed and believing they are engaging in something inappropriate in the school restroom. Once the boys leave, Sito stands up and questions why Anju made such a sound, realizing that it could lead people to think something else. Anju acknowledges that she did it on purpose and feels no need to justify her actions. After confirming that the boys are gone, Anju adjusts her clothes to look more presentable for school. She then takes Sito's hand, suggesting they go back to the classroom or head home. As they walk through the corridor, Anju holds Sito's hand tightly. Sito feels uncertain about their closeness, worried that others might misinterpret the situation. However, Anju remains undeterred, happily holding his hand as they continue on their way. Both Sito and Anju are inside the classroom together after just coming from the restroom. Sito sits down in his usual seat, studying as he typically does, while Anju starts playing. After a while, she seems bored and decides to disturb him. First, she takes Sito's glasses, which he uses to read. Immediately, Sito struggles to read because the glasses are his magnifying aid for seeing tiny words. Anju puts the glasses on her face and playfully asks Sito if they fit her. Sito begs her to return the glasses, explaining that he won't be able to continue reading without them. However, Anju is unfazed. She continues to play with the glasses. Then, she holds up 2 fingers near Sito's face, asking him how many fingers she is showing. Sito replies that 1 finger is close and big enough for him to see clearly. He explains that he uses his glasses to read tiny words in the textbooks, but he can see her fingers clearly without them. During the lunch period, each student takes their food from home or buys snacks from the cafeteria. Sito enjoys having his lunch alone as he walks through the corridor, eating with one hand and reading a short book with the other. As he walks past the restroom, he notices Anju inside, where she is using water to clean her face. She doesn't see him, so Sito quickens his pace, hoping to pass by unnoticed. Unfortunately, Anju looks back and spots him, approaching him with a playful remark about not calling her. Before Sito can respond, she asks if he plans to spend lunch by himself again. Sito is too distracted to answer because he can't help but notice how she looks as she dresses, finding her appearance striking as always. However, he struggles to express his thoughts to her. Anju tells Sito that she has an idea and invites him to follow her. She leads him to the topmost floor of the school building, a place that is off limits according to school management. While Sito has never been here before, Anju has come several times. Satu feels nervous and expresses his concern that it is against the rules to be in this area, even though he knows Anju is aware of it. She reassures him, saying she has been here before, not just once but multiple times, and he has no need to worry. Once they settle down, Anju notices what Satu is eating and comments that his choice of food will only make him thinner. Satu looks at her and points out that he has more body weight than she does, yet she complains about his food. Anju, undeterred, brings out her own meal and starts spoon-feeding Satu, playfully acting like a married couple. Satu is reluctant at first, but eventually starts to eat. Anju feeds him so much that he begins to feel overwhelmed. After spending some time there, Anju suggests they skip the next class period. However, Satu insists he prefers to attend class and continue his studies. Anju grows frustrated upon hearing this, but Kuno, another student, settles down and says they should just skip the period. During lunch, Anju asks Satu if he doesn't enjoy the time they spend together. Satu struggles to answer her as he prepares to leave the rooftop. Despite all her efforts, kissing him and holding onto his clothes to keep him from going, Satu prioritizes his studies above everything else and continues to move away. At the end of the day, Satu is in the dormitory, packing some books into his bag as he prepares to leave. Suddenly, Miss Kamaki, the school nurse, spots him and walks over quickly. She asks if he is going home right now, to which Satu replies that he is. Miss Kamaki then stretches something out to Satu. Curious, he asks what it is, and upon looking inside, he sees it is the manga he had lent her. He thanks her as he takes it back. As she moves closer, Miss Kamaki comments on how nice he looks today and notes that she has recently observed he has been dressing well. Satu can sense that Miss Kamaki might be developing feelings for him. After she leaves, Satu looks inside his bag and sees that she has placed the manga in it. He wonders to himself if it was really necessary for her to include it. Just as he is about to leave, someone jumps on him from behind. It is Anju, who jumps on Satu from behind. Initially startled and annoyed, he quickly calms down upon realizing it's her, and they exchange greetings. Anju's first question is about Miss Kamaki, asking what she came to do with him. Satu explains that they share a similar taste in manga, which is why he lent her some that he thought she would find interesting. He mentions that she came to return the manga. Anju looks at him suspiciously and wonders why the school would only ask Satu for such things, and not anyone else. She then insists that she wants to borrow the same manga that he has just received back. Satu tells her that the manga he is holding consists of the later volumes in the series, and that the earlier ones are at home. He explains that she should read the earlier volumes first to fully enjoy and understand the story. Before he finishes, Anju interrupts him, suggesting they go to his house since he mentioned the manga is there. However, they unexpectedly find themselves in a manga shop instead. Satu, a frequent visitor who reads a lot, helps Anju by recommending some interesting manga for her to check out. Anju is reading some of the manga when she turns to Satu and asks him a question about how difficult it could be for someone in love to explain or confess their feelings. Satu, who has read the manga before, tells her that it is very hard for someone with genuine feelings to confess to another person. Just as Anju expected, she knows he will give an intelligent answer, which she has been anticipating. She remarks that if only one of the characters she is reading about had managed to confess their feelings, there wouldn't be any need for conflict in the story. As they continue reading, Anju enjoys most of the manga that Satu has selected for her, eventually falling asleep. When new customers enter the manga shop, those already there see a girl sleeping in Satu's lap and assume that they are dating. This makes Satu uncomfortable, but he doesn't want to wake her or disturb her sleep. As evening approaches, Anju finally stirs and wakes up, signaling that it's time for them to leave the manga shop. As soon as they step outside, Anju expresses her desire to visit the manga shop again whenever she is free, noting that she really enjoyed her time there. She reflects on how she didn't know a manga shop could be so interesting, especially when reading with someone like Sito. Sito shakes his head in disagreement, thinking that after her behavior, sleeping and making noise in the manga shop, he cannot allow her to return. He feels that her actions were disruptive. The next day at school, Sito arrives early. Anju comes in and hands back the manga she borrowed, mentioning how much she enjoyed it. Sito feels surprised that she has managed to read all the manga in just one day and imagines how late she must have stayed up to finish it. As she walks back to her seat, Sito quietly thinks about looking forward to lending her more manga in the future. One day, the rain falls heavily, accompanied by loud thunder that frightens even small children and some adults. Among those adults is Sito, who has already reached the school before the rain starts. As the rain continues to pour, he does not want to be late, so he ventures out into the downpour. Once inside, he seeks a corner to wring out the water from his wet clothes. While he attempts to squeeze the water from his clothing, he finds himself too timid to look at Anju, who is nearby. Despite his embarrassment, she seems more concerned about her own situation. Anju expresses her frustration, emphasizing that her main concern is being wet from the rain and that she needs to find a way to dry herself. She neglects to notice Sito's awkwardness as he tries to avoid looking directly at her. It is afternoon, and Sito finds himself in a shopping mall designed for young girls. He feels surprised and questions how he ended up here. Just before this, he was absorbed in reading at the school library, fully engrossed in his books while wearing his glasses. Anju approaches him and compliments him, saying he looks cute and innocent in his glasses. She mentions that his smile somehow draws her to him, expressing her admiration for his appearance. However, Sito remains silent, not responding to her compliments. As she notices his lack of response, her mood shifts to frustration. To lighten the atmosphere, she makes a demand. If Sito wants to apologize for his silence, he must agree to follow her to the shopping mall. She does not mention the kind of shopping they are going to until Sito finally finds himself in a section meant for couples or people who are dating. As he stands there, he tries not to look at the other young women trying on mini dresses that expose various parts of their bodies. It makes it challenging for him to be there alone. Anju moves toward him, wanting to ask if the clothes she has picked are beautiful. Initially, Sito hesitates to answer, but he realizes the stress of avoiding the question would be greater, so he finally agrees that they are beautiful. He thinks this will shorten her shopping experience. However, Anju notices his attempt to rush her and decides that Sito should be the one to pick another outfit for her. She insists that she will buy or wear whatever he chooses. Sito can hardly believe what he is hearing. He wonders how to ensure she doesn't feel forced to choose something else. Eventually, she selects a dress and heads into the changing room to try it on. As she goes inside, Sito stands outside, imagining that she will have to undress completely to wear the newly chosen outfit. As he stands there, he imagines all kinds of inappropriate scenarios trying to control his thoughts. Unfortunately for him, after Anju puts on the outfit he picked, a bra and a pair of short underwear, she calls him, urging him to come behind the curtain to see if the underwear fits. Initially, he doesn't want to enter, but after much persuasion from her, he finally steps inside. When he enters, he is met with a sight that shocks him. Anju is wearing the revealing outfit, and she shouts, causing everyone in the mall to turn their heads in alarm. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Sito bolts out of the mall, leaving her alone. It isn't until he gets home that he fully realizes what just happened. The following day, as he sits alone at his desk in the classroom, Sito reflects on the events of yesterday. He feels an intense shame about what occurred and dreads the idea of facing Anju. He worries that she might be angry with him or refuse to talk to him because of the embarrassment he caused. To his surprise, Anju approaches him at his seat. She leans in and cheerfully mentions that the underwear he bought for her yesterday is what she is wearing to school that day. She announces that he is the only one who knows about it, loud enough for the entire class to hear. The reaction is immediate, with the class erupting into surprise and laughter. Sito feels his face flush as a wave of embarrassment washes over him. The unexpected revelation leaves him disorganized and confused, and he struggles to focus on his studies. No matter how hard he tries, the words on the page blur, and throughout the class, he cannot concentrate at all. It is a bright afternoon during school hours, and several students are enjoying themselves when Anju walks alone through the school corridor. Suddenly, a group of boys approaches her. One of the three boys steps forward, confessing his feelings for her. He tells her how he has always admired her from afar and has longed for her affection. However, Anju kindly rejects him, and his friends quickly help him retreat to his classroom, consoling him after the disappointing turn of events. As Anju turns away, she notices someone watching the scene unfold. Upon closer inspection, she realizes it is Sito, who steps forward, looking surprised. He quickly explains that he was not peeping. Rather, he was on his way to the management office when he overheard the conversation and decided to take a look. To Sito's surprise, Anju asks him whether he is bothered by the fact that some guys are confessing their feelings for her. He is taken aback by the question, wondering how the confessions of other boys could possibly affect him. Anju then drags him to an unused laboratory, which is a bit dusty and dimly lit. As they enter, she pulls out a pair of sharp scissors, moving closer to where she instructs him to sit. Sito's heart races as he wonders what she plans to do with the scissors. When she finally approaches him, she lifts the scissors near his head and begins to trim his hair. Anju feels a sense of calm wash over her as she focuses on the task at hand, explaining that she has always disliked seeing unkempt hair, especially on those she cares for. After a few minutes, she finishes cutting his hair and leads him to a mirror, instructing him to check for any mistakes. Before she started cutting, she had ordered him to remove his shirt, and now he stands in front of the mirror, examining his new look. Anju shares her dream of becoming a hairstylist, just like her mother, explaining that prioritizing her goals is more important to her than dating guys who have no real ambitions for the future. She mentions that her mother owns a stylish shop and a drink parlor where she sells beverages. As she talks about her plans, Sito notices a change in her demeanor and asks her why. She brushes it off, claiming that she is simply focused on her future, but deep down, Sito wonders about the possibility of dating her. While they prepare to leave the room, Sito notices some hair on his clothes, despite having removed his shirt for the haircut. They step outside the laboratory, and Anju's friends spot her immediately. They tell her they've been looking for her around the school, and when they ask where she has been, Anju replies that she is following Sito, who promised to buy something for her. As they reach the school gates, Sito is surprised to see that all of Anju's friends have come along with her. To his delight, he ends up buying ice cream for everyone, including himself. Sito and Anju are walking along the road when Anju spots a cat. She is instantly enamored with it and starts running after the feline, eager to play. However, the cat seems elusive, darting away every time she gets close. After several attempts, frustration sets in, and Anju turns to Sito, exclaiming in exasperation why the cat won't just wait so she can play with it. Sito, trying to help, pulls out his phone and checks Twitter for advice. He discovers a suggestion that if Anju wants to attract the cat, she should try blinking her eyes at it. He explains that the cat may respond better to this method rather than being called by name, especially if it isn't her cat. Encouraged by his advice, Anju blinks at the cat. To her delight, the cat gradually moves closer, allowing her to interact with it. Overjoyed, she jumps up in excitement and hugs Sito tightly, thanking him for his help. As Anju holds him, Sito feels a mix of emotions. He appreciates her happiness, but also becomes acutely aware of the awkwardness of the situation. One morning, Sito is on his way to school, boarding a train that passes in front of his house. However, there is something about riding the train that he dislikes. The cramped space is usually filled with a diverse crowd, from young children to the elderly. Each time he boards, he feels an overwhelming sense of obligation. If he sees older people standing, he feels compelled to offer them his seat. On this particular morning, as the train jolts forward, Sito notices an elderly woman standing nearby. A sense of embarrassment washes over him as he realizes she has no place to sit while he occupies a seat. Torn between his desire to help and his discomfort in speaking up, he decides he cannot simply tell her to take a seat. Instead, he formulates a plan to avoid direct confrontation. He stands up and pretends he needs to get off at the next stop, walking toward the front of the train. By doing this, he hopes to create an opportunity for the old woman to take his seat without drawing attention to himself. But unfortunately for Sito, as soon as he stands up, a healthy man in his 40s quickly takes his seat. Sito's frustration boils over, realizing that the elderly woman will have to stand for the entire train ride. This situation is not new to him. He has encountered similar scenarios before. However, he pushes the anger aside, focusing on his journey to school, where the annoyance gradually fades away. Now in class, Sito sits at his locker, filling out a form he has procrastinated on since last week. He is still engrossed in his paperwork when his friend Inuyama approaches him. They exchange greetings, and Inuyama excitedly shows Sito a sculpture he has recently completed. This isn't the first time Inuyama has showcased his work, but this particular piece catches Sito off guard. The sculpture depicts a model in a semi-nude pose, which raises eyebrows. Sito glances at it and voices his concern, cautioning Inuyama that the school management might punish him or take offense to such an explicit piece. Inuyama confidently dismisses Sito's worries, assuring him that there is no chance the school will see it since he is only sharing it with him. Sito looks at the form he is filling out and realizes it is the same one that many classmates have already submitted. He is surprised that he has not turned it in yet, considering he is usually punctual. The form pertains to the colleges they wish to attend. Inuyama, sitting beside him, fills in a different answer. Instead of a college, he writes down a place known for its nightlife and where he can mingle with many girls. Sito is astonished when Inuyama reveals his choice. Inuyama then shows his form, prompting Sito to take a closer look. He notices the discrepancies in their answers. As they review the forms, Inuyama expresses his belief that Sito and Anju are dating. Sito insists they are just friends, but Inuyama seems taken aback by this response. Inuyama then suggests that, even as friends, Sito should have made a move. Sito feels a mix of frustration and disbelief as Inuyama implies that if he doesn't take action, he might die a virgin. Sito knows Inuyama's personality and decides not to engage further in the conversation. They both leave their seats and head down the stairs to submit their forms. While walking, Inuyama continues to elaborate on how Sito has been too gentle with girls, specifically mentioning Nurse Kamaki, who allegedly has an interest in him. Sito does not give her any chance, and there are other girls who are more beautiful and have better body shapes than Anju. However, he claims he does not see this opportunity or the good in it. While Inuyama is busy talking, Anju shows up. As soon as she sees them stop talking, she realizes they might be discussing her, so she moves closer and asks if they're talking about her. Sito immediately denies it, saying they are not talking about her. However, Inuyama accidentally reveals that Anju would like to touch Sito's body. Sito feels embarrassed and tries to insist that it is a lie. Before he knows what happens, Anju moves closer and suggests that he can touch her body now. Sito feels paralyzed, and Anju laughs, saying she is just kidding and knows he wouldn't say something like that as she walks away. Inuyama, witnessing everything, becomes angry and wonders why Sito does not take the chance to touch her. Sito reflects on his recent experiences, realizing that to be a man, he must undergo a transformation. There is no amount of training or lessons that can make him a man because of what just happened. After submitting their forms, Inuyama continues to remind Sito about the opportunity he missed. As Sito heads home on the train, he thinks about how it takes him past their house to school and back again. In the evening, the train is usually packed with people, making it rare for him to find a seat. Today is no exception. He cannot find a place to sit. Standing in the crowded train, he holds onto the support bars, reminiscing about how Inuyama caused so much chaos for him earlier, especially in front of Anju. While lost in thought, a man in the train, a pervert, notices a young girl about Sito's age. He plans to take advantage of her in the crowded space. This situation is not uncommon on the train. The man moves closer to the young lady and attempts to rub his lower body against her, believing she won't notice. However, Sito sees what the man is about to do. Knowing he cannot directly confront the man, he positions himself behind the lady to protect her from the unwanted advances. Eventually, the man walks away. As soon as the man leaves, the lady turns around and accuses Sito, saying he is the one who touched her. Sito is taken aback by her words, realizing that the man must have already touched her, likely more than once, before he could intervene. As they reach the train station, the girl grabs Sito's arm, preventing him from leaving. She pleads for his help, shouting that he is a molester. Her voice echoes through the station, drawing the attention of everyone around. Sito feels a wave of fear wash over him. He tries to explain that there has been a misunderstanding, insisting he is not the one who touched her on the train. He only shielded her from further molestation by the real perpetrator, who is still in the crowd. However, the girl does not seem to hear him. Before Sito can say more, several strong men pin him down, asking the lady what she wants them to do with him. Sito feels the weight of their stares, imagining how his life could change in an instant. He worries about the news spreading to his school, envisioning the possibility of being expelled and shamed. He fears what his parents will think if they find out. He imagines their disappointment and how they might leave him or force him out of the house. The thought of bearing a bad name terrifies him, and he feels completely trapped in a nightmare. Just as they are about to beat Sito, Anju, who also rode the train and witnessed the incident, quietly searches for the real molester. She spots him among the crowd and delivers a powerful kick, knocking him to the ground. Quickly, she gets on top of him and begins to subdue him, declaring to the lady who accused Sito that this is the real molester. Anju explains that Sito was only trying to help and that she has brought the true perpetrator for them to deal with properly. After a few minutes of beating the molester, Anju asks him what he has to say. He begs for forgiveness, admitting he is the real molester and confessing to everything that has happened. A sense of joy spreads across Sito's face as he begins to smile, relieved that the truth is coming to light. The lady turns to Sito, apologizing for her false accusation. She expresses her regret, explaining that she only pointed him out because he was standing behind her. Sito quickly assures the lady that she does not need to apologize. Anju reassures her, saying that since Sito has accepted her apology, there is no need for further action. Together, they detain the real molester, and Sito and Anju decide to hand him over to the police. As they walk toward the police station, Anju playfully asks Sito if he forgives the lady easily just because she is more beautiful than her. Sito is surprised by the comment and insists that it is not the case, reminding her that he has always been forgiving. When they arrive at the police station and explain what happened, they expect gratitude for their help in capturing the molester. However, instead of praise, the police show little appreciation and do not thank them. Instead, they scold Sito and Anju for going too far in their punishment of the molester, despite having him in custody. Sito expresses his gratitude to Anju for everything she has done that day and apologizes for the delay, knowing she could have been home resting by now. Anju waves off his apology, saying it's not necessary as they board the train heading back home. As they ride the train, Anju recalls how quickly Sito forgave the lady. Feeling a surge of affection, she holds him tightly, insisting that they should be close. She suggests they go somewhere together instead of heading home. However, Sito replies that he must go home to study. Anju smirks, acknowledging that she knew he would say that. Sito, as the class president, is tasked with organizing a ball game tournament along with 2 other boys. The instructions are clear. The boys are to stay after school to prepare. However, when the school day ends, the 2 students grab their bags and leave, telling Sito that since he is the president, he should handle it by himself. This leaves Sito feeling frustrated, knowing that he can manage the tasks, but it will take a lot of his time. Just then, Anju appears, exclaiming that she has been looking for him. She asks if he is busy at the moment. Sito looks at her with an annoyed expression, pointing out that he is clearly working. Anju persists, asking if this is really his responsibility, suggesting he can come back to it later and just take a break with her for a moment. Sito remains reluctant to leave his work, but Anju is determined. She grabs him by the neck and pulls him along the school corridor. They arrive at the handicraft room, which is currently unused. Anju and her friends have been using this space to cook, and it's become a little haven for them. As Sito and Anju enter the handicraft room, they find a large spread of food prepared by Anju and her friends, Toyota and Chita, who are waiting eagerly to start eating. Since Anju is the one who brought Sito, she pulls out a chair for him to sit down. Curious, Sito asks how they managed to prepare all this food. Anju explains that they have a hot pot, which is more like an electric pot, so they can cook using electricity instead of fire. She adds that this isn't their first time doing it, and as long as they haven't been caught, they should be safe. As Sito looks around the room, he notices Toyota, Anju's first friend, known for her gentle nature. Everyone at school recognizes her for her kindness. On the other hand, Chita, who is very hungry, has already started eating as soon as they entered. She enthusiastically asks the others if they would like more food, clearly enjoying the meal. After finishing her portion, Toyota turns to Anju and asks how far along she and Sito are in their relationship. Sito is taken aback by the question, as he had no idea they were considered to be in a relationship. Anticipating Sito's reaction, Anju responds that they haven't gone far yet and are still at the beginning, adding that they haven't done anything intimate so far. At the mention of intimate, Sito's eyes widen in surprise. He expresses his discomfort, stating that he didn't think girls would talk about such topics. Sensing the awkwardness, Anju quickly changes the subject, asking Sito if he likes the food. He replies affirmatively. Anju then explains that she usually prepares this dish for someone she wants to comfort. She reveals that she made it specifically for Sito to help ease his stress from the past week, particularly after the incident where he was mistaken for a molester and all the hard work he has been doing. In reality, the meal was prepared for Sito, with her friends there simply to keep them company and celebrate with her. As they eat, Sito finds himself at the center of attention as Toyota and Chita continue to question Anju about her relationship with him. This all feels new and somewhat overwhelming for him. Sito replies to Toyota, stating that he would only become intimate with someone he is genuinely dating. Anju then playfully asks what would happen if he were dating her. Would he be intimate with her? Sito feels embarrassed and quickly urges everyone to focus on their meal, insisting they should practice good table manners instead. While attempting to maintain his composure, he bends down to retrieve a fallen spoon. In doing so, he notices Anju's posture and finds himself momentarily distracted. He quickly looks away, but as he raises his head, he accidentally bumps it against the table, causing food to spill onto Anju's clothes. Immediately, Anju's friends spring into action, helping her clean up. Sito stands off to the side, feeling guilty and awkward. To help, He offers his own clothes for Anju to change in while he wraps himself in a school towel to cover up. As they head home, Anju's friends check in on her, asking if she sustained any bruises from the food spill. She reassures them that the food wasn't as hot as when it was cooked, so she didn't get hurt. Then, she casually mentions that she had to change all her clothes, including her inner garments, leaving her completely naked before putting on Sito's clothes. The revelation leaves Sito speechless, a mix of embarrassment and surprise flooding over him. The next day at school, Anju surprises Sito by returning his clothes. She had washed and ironed them, making sure they were smooth and presentable. Sito, who had worn a different uniform to school that day, feels a sense of gratitude and warmth towards her. As the school tournament approaches more rapidly than expected, the school management organizes a team of representatives from each class to act as caregivers for the participants. They gather on the basketball court, where their teacher introduces a lively female firefighter to explain the basics of first aid and emergency treatment. She emphasizes the importance of their role in ensuring the safety and well-being of both performers and spectators during the tournament. The teacher urges everyone to take the lesson seriously, reminding them that the school community will look to them for guidance and support in emergencies. As the session begins, the school nurse, Miss Kamaki, encourages everyone to pair up for practical exercises. However, Sito stands alone, prompting Miss Kamaki to ask him why he doesn't have a partner. He explains that his usual planner buddies are too busy to join him for the training session. Seeing Sito's situation, Anju, who has been listening nearby, decides to step in. With a friendly smile, she offers to be his partner, eager to support him and learn alongside him. Grateful for her gesture, Sito accepts her offer, feeling a mix of relief and happiness. As the session progresses, the firefighter demonstrates various first aid techniques, and Sito and Anju work closely together, practicing bandaging, CPR, and other vital skills. Anju's enthusiasm makes the lessons more enjoyable, and Sito finds himself more engaged than he had anticipated. After the nurse explains that the purpose of pairing them up is for one student to act as a victim and the other as a rescuer, she notices Sito standing alone and decides to partner with him. However, when Sito asks why a student shouldn't be the rescuer, the nurse agrees and calls Anju over to act as his rescuer while she moves around to check on the other pairs. The firefighter takes the floor and begins her presentation. She emphasizes that the first step in assessing a victim is to check if they are conscious and breathing. She demonstrates how to check for consciousness and the correct methods for assessing breathing, providing practical examples for the students to follow. As the demonstration continues, Anju grows restless and suddenly declares that she wants to be the patient instead, insisting that Sito should be her partner. Without hesitation, she lays back on the floor, a playful smile on her face. The instructor demonstrates how to perform chest compressions on a patient who isn't breathing, explaining the correct technique to follow. Anju, wanting to make the exercise realistic, loosens her shirt a bit to show where Sito should place his hands for the compressions. But Sito freezes, his face turning red with embarrassment. He hesitates, feeling too shy to touch her chest, even for practice, as he grapples with the awkwardness of the situation. The instructor insists that everyone must perform the compressions, emphasizing that it's a vital skill they all need to learn. Sito feels he has no choice but to comply, even though he's nervous. He tries to position his hands in the upper region of Anju's chest, aiming to avoid the more intimate areas. But Anju playfully grabs his hands and places them where he is trying to avoid. Unlike Sito, she seems unfazed by the situation, clearly more focused on the fun they're having than on the awkwardness. As the instructor explains that they will soon practice mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, Anju's eyes light up with excitement. She appears to be enjoying this far more than Sito, who is struggling to keep his composure. The thought of performing mouth-to-mouth fills Sito with anxiety, and his mind begins to spiral with wild thoughts, imagining that they are dating and in a much different scenario. As Sito leans in closer, ready to follow the instructor's instructions, Anju suddenly pauses and exclaims, "You're bleeding." Sito instinctively touches his nose, only to find blood on his fingers. Panic sets in as the nurse rushes over, instructing him to come to the infirmary immediately for treatment. After receiving care for his nosebleed, Sito emerges from the infirmary, feeling a bit embarrassed but relieved. Anju waits for him outside, a supportive smile on her face. "I'll help you with your bag," she says, picking it up for him as they begin to walk home together. As they walk home together, Anju teases Sito about getting too excited during the first aid practice, claiming that it caused his nosebleed. She playfully suggests that if she were in real trouble, he wouldn't be able to help her. Sito reassures her that he would do everything in his power to assist her, easing her worries. Her face lights up with happiness at his words. In a spontaneous gesture, she wraps her arms around him in a tight hug, whispering that he now owes her some food since they are heading home. It's Friday, and the tournament has finally started, with everyone buzzing with excitement to see which team will emerge as the champion. As the basketball game unfolds, the energy in the air is palpable. However, Sito finds himself struggling to stay focused. Just a few minutes into the match, a straight ball unexpectedly strikes him in the face, knocking him to the ground. Immediately, he is taken to the infirmary, where the nurse, familiar with his tendencies, isn't surprised to see him again, especially given the severity of the injury. As she tends to his bleeding nose, she reminds him to be more careful, knowing his limitations in sports. Sito admits that he's been sleep-deprived lately, juggling his responsibilities as class president, studying, and making pom-poms late into the night since his classmates haven't been much help. Once he's treated and released, he makes his way back to the basketball court. On his way, he spots Anjou at the buttery, sipping on a bottle of water. After quenching her thirst, she playfully tosses the empty bottle toward him, encouraging him to drink. Sito hesitates, knowing the implications of drinking from her bottle, but despite his reluctance, he ultimately decides to take a sip. They find a quiet spot away from the hustle and bustle of the tournament, where they can talk about the incident. Sito recounts how the ball struck him, still a bit dazed from the impact. He then asks Anjou if she plans to play again, curious about her decision. Anjou responds that she doesn't feel like playing anymore. Sito tries to remind her of the importance of participating, especially since her skills could really contribute to the team. However, she insists that she prefers to spectate for the rest of the games. Yet, seeing how much Sito genuinely wants her to play, she changes her mind. If she decides to play, she tells him she will strive to win or at least score high. In return, she wants Sito to promise her that he will do whatever she asks afterward. Understanding that her playing hinges on this promise, Sito agrees, despite being uncertain about what she might ask of him later. Anjou rejoins the game, and true to her word, she plays exceptionally well. Her skill and determination shine through as she leads her team, helping them win each round. The audience watches in awe, impressed by her performance, and many of the guys start to admire her all over again. Anjou's contributions save her team from losing crucial points, solidifying her reputation as a formidable player. During the game break, Anjou approaches Sito, reminding him of their earlier promise. She playfully snatches the water bottle from his hands and takes a sip, thanking him for it. Sito, a bit flustered, points out that his lips have touched the bottle, to which Anjou responds with a teasing smile. She claims that it means she has given him her first indirect kiss. Sito is taken aback by her words. The concept of a first kiss lingers in his mind, leaving him stunned. Throughout the rest of the day, he can't shake the thought that he was the one to have shared this special moment with Anjou, even if it was indirect. With the tournament finally over, the teacher announces that exam week begins immediately. As the news sinks in, a wave of groans fills the classroom, with students visibly frustrated by the sudden shift in focus from sports to studies. Many, including Sito, realize that they have fallen behind in their preparations and know they must step up their study efforts if they hope to achieve good grades. With all sports activities now suspended, the students have a quieter environment to study, free from the distractions of practice and games. Sito packs his bag quickly after school, eager to get home and start studying. As he hurries out, Anjou notices him and asks why he's leaving early. Sito, with a hint of urgency, responds by questioning why she hasn't begun preparing for the upcoming exams. Sito realizes that Anjou is serious about her studies as she talks about taking responsibility for her performance. He isn't quite sure what she means, but he senses it might be a challenge. Anjou then suggests they head to McDonald's to buy some snacks, which surprises him but also seems like a welcome distraction from the stress of exams. As they sit down with their food, Anjou pulls out her midterm exam results, and Sito is taken aback by the low scores across the board. She explains her situation, detailing how her midterm results are disheartening and how crucial the final exams are for her to boost her grades. If she doesn't perform well on the final, she risks being forced into supplementary classes. Anjou elaborates on the pressure of facing supplementary classes, sharing her concerns about the scrutiny from teachers. She explains that it's not just about the extra classes. It's the added stress of being under the watchful eyes of the faculty, which would make it difficult for her to focus. Sito quickly understands that Anju's invitation to McDonald's isn't just for snacks. She's looking for help with her studies for the upcoming exam. He hesitates, explaining that he hasn't covered everything he needs to for the exam either, and that tutoring her would take away precious time from his own studying. Sito has been meticulously planning how to tackle the syllabus in the days leading up to the exam, and adding tutoring to his schedule feels overwhelming. Anju tries to persuade him, offering to buy him fries every time they study together. However, Sito declines, insisting he's not interested in the fries. She then sweetens the deal, saying that if he helps her pass the exam, she'll agree to do everything he says during the summer break. This piques Sito's interest. He realizes just how serious she is about not wanting to fail and understands the implications of her offer. As he contemplates his options, Sito finds himself torn. On one hand, he knows he should focus on his own studies, but on the other, he feels a sense of responsibility to help Anju. Sito reluctantly decides to help Anju a little, and they begin their tutoring session right there in the restaurant. After about 15 minutes, Anju suddenly declares that it's enough for the day, leaving Sito surprised. He points out that they haven't even been studying for an hour, but she insists that she's had enough. To lighten the mood, Anju proposes they start daydreaming. She asks Sito a hypothetical question. If he were given 300 million yen, what would he do with it? However, Sito doesn't engage with her question. He tells her to stay focused, reminding her that they have a long way to go if he's going to help her. Anju, feeling bored, reveals her lack of interest in studying, which explains her low midterm exam scores. To motivate herself, Anju decides to make the session more fun. She picks up one of the fries she bought for Sito and, with a mischievous grin, offers it to him by placing part of it in her mouth and asking him to take the remaining piece with his mouth. Sito recoils at the suggestion, firmly refusing to do it. Anju pouts, claiming that his refusal means he's not serious about tutoring her and that he's willing to let her fail. He knows she's just trying to distract him. Even though it was uncomfortable for Sito, he finally decides to go along with Anju's request. He hesitates, feeling awkward about getting too close, but he does it anyway. Anju bursts into laughter at his unease, and Sito can't help but feel embarrassed. Frustrated, he warns her that if she keeps making fun of him, he'll just leave and go home. Sito then shifts the conversation back to their studies, reminding her that even with the supplementary classes looming over her, he has his own reasons for wanting to help. He recalls her dreams, the aspirations she shared with him, and emphasizes that if she wants to achieve them, she needs to put in the effort to read and study. Anju falls quiet for a moment, taking in his words. She reflects on his diligence and the sincerity behind his advice. With a newfound seriousness, she promises to listen and commit to studying hard. The exam finally begins, and on the first day, Sito finds himself struggling. He coughs frequently, which causes Anju, sitting directly in front of him, to glance back repeatedly to check on his condition. Her constant looks draw the attention of the supervisor, who starts to suspect they might be cheating because of how often Anju checks on him. During the exam, Sito's eraser slips from his hand and falls to the floor. As he leans down to pick it up, dizziness washes over him, and he suddenly collapses. When he finally opens his eyes, he finds himself in the infirmary with Nurse Kamaki beside him, checking his temperature. The thermometer reads high, and she informs him that he won't be able to finish the exam. Feeling guilty for interrupting her work, Sito apologizes for bothering her. Nurse Kamaki responds firmly, reminding him that he isn't the only one who falls sick during exam periods. She explains that it's her duty to care for students like him, who often push themselves too hard without realizing when to stop. As Nurse Kamaki walks away, she instructs Sito to relax while she contacts his parents to inform them about his situation. Left alone, Sito broods in frustration, blaming himself for falling ill during such an important time. He can't shake the feeling of disappointment, knowing his classmates are in the exam hall, giving their best while he is stuck in a sickbed. Unexpectedly, he notices Anju quietly entering the infirmary. She had lied to the supervisor, saying she was going to the toilet, but instead, she came to check on him. When Sito asks why she's there, she replies that she needed to see him to ensure he was okay. Anju glances at his temperature reading and notes that it's elevated, while her own feels cold. She insists on staying close, claiming she needs to touch him to help lower his temperature. Despite her concern, Sito feels a mix of gratitude and guilt. He's still angry with himself for letting his classmates down and for making Anju leave her exam to check on him. Sito, overwhelmed with guilt for being a burden, insists he doesn't want to trouble Anju further. He recalls how she saved him during the incident on the train, feeling even more ashamed. Despite his determination to get to the exam hall, he attempts to stand up, but Anju gently pulls him back down, urging him to rest. Her reassurance, along with her affectionate term for him, brings a small smile to his face, momentarily easing his frustration. Anju remains by his side, encouraging him to relax while promising to finish her exam later. As Sito drifts off to sleep, Nurse Kamaki returns to check on him. Finding him fast asleep with a flushed face, she grows concerned about his condition. Recognizing he doesn't look well, she decides to take him home herself, as she has been unable to contact anyone from his family. With Sito still unaware of his surroundings, he remains in a deep, feverish slumber. Sito takes a day off from school, missing class entirely. Throughout the day, Anju feels bitter and bored, struggling with the absence of someone to tease or play with. Although her friends Toyota and Chita are nearby, their presence does not fill the void Sito leaves. Anju's mood is noticeably different, and her friends pick up on her unusual demeanor. They sense something deeper at play and inquire about her feelings for Sito. Anju hesitates, unable to provide a direct answer. She reflects that it isn't simply about liking him. Rather, it is the unique bond they share, a type of relationship she has not encountered anywhere else. Her friends are taken aback by her revelation, realizing that Anju's feelings for Sito may run deeper than they initially thought. The next day, Sito returns to class, fully recovered and ready to resume his duties as class president. Anju feels a wave of relief and happiness at his return. Sito quickly gets to work, reminding the class to submit their assignments immediately. When he checks the submissions, he notices that Anju's work is incomplete. Curious, he asks her why she hasn't finished it, and she admits that she didn't understand the assignment. Seeing her struggle, Sito takes the time to tutor Anju on the topic, guiding her through a few examples until she feels more confident in her understanding. As he teaches, Anju comments that he would make a great teacher, appreciating his patience and clarity. Meanwhile, Sito's friends, who have been assigned to clean the toilets, approach him again. Despite just recovering from his illness, they insist that he go with them to handle the task. Without hesitation, Sito agrees, ready to take on the responsibility. This angers Anju, who protests that it's unfair for him to clean the toilets alone, especially when the job is meant for 3 people. Sito responds that if he doesn't do it, no one else will step up. This only frustrates Anju further, and she declares that if it were her, she would leave it for the teacher to deal with, even if it meant facing the consequences. After a while, Anju moves closer to Sito, attempting to hug him. However, Sito gently pushes her away, explaining that he only wants to have an intimate relationship with someone he is dating or truly loves. This response shifts Anju's mood. Inside, she feels a surge of annoyance, but she tries not to let it show. To collect herself, she excuses herself to go to the bathroom. During lunch, Sito finds himself in the male restroom with a couple of classmates. They ask him if there's anything romantic happening between him and Anju. He quickly dismisses the idea, insisting that they are just friends. However, his classmates challenge his denial, suggesting he has a way with her and must have feelings for her. Sito insists that he only helps Anju with her studies, and she does the same for him. He reiterates that their relationship is built on friendship and mutual support, and they've always been there for each other. Despite his assurances, his classmates remain skeptical, hinting that there might be more to their bond than he admits. Sito continues his conversation with his classmates, who suggest that for a girl like Anju, it would be much easier for other guys to win her over. Meanwhile, Anju passes by the restroom and catches snippets of their discussion. Curious, she lingers behind the closed door, straining to hear what they are saying about her and Sito. After a few moments of eavesdropping, Anju decides to make her entrance. She walks into the restroom with purpose, heading straight towards Sito, who looks up in surprise at her unexpected appearance. Anju bends down slightly and plants a kiss on his right cheek, leaning in to whisper something romantic while making a playful, affectionate face for the guys to see. As she walks out, the room erupts with astonished shouts from her classmates, their envy and admiration evident. Anju knows exactly what she has done. She deliberately creates this scene to solidify the perception of her close relationship with Sito. Once she exits, Sito's classmates turn to him, their disbelief palpable. They no longer believe his claims of merely being friends with Anju, convinced he has been lying all along. As the session comes to a close, teachers distribute report cards to each student. Excitement fills the room as some students eagerly share their results, while others display disappointment. Sito receives his report card, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. Despite being ill during the exam period, he is relieved to see that he has passed without needing to repeat any grades or courses. As he reviews his results, a thought suddenly strikes him. Anju. He realizes how much she has supported him throughout the semester. Even while she was sick, she had taken the time to help him study, shouldering part of his academic burden. Her dedication to him causes him to feel a mix of admiration and concern, recognizing that her focus on his well-being may have distracted her from her own studies. Immediately after collecting his report card, Sito moves through the classroom to find Anju. Before he can locate her, she surprises him by hugging him from behind, expressing her gratitude for his tutoring. Their moment of celebration is interrupted when their teacher approaches Anju, reminding her not to forget what they discussed earlier. The teacher informs her that, due to her grades, she must clean both the male and female toilets to have a chance for reconsideration. Faced with no other option, Anju pleads with the teacher to allow Sito to help her, and to her relief, the teacher agrees. Now, the two find themselves in the female restroom, tackling the cleaning task together. After working for a while, Anju begins to feel fatigued. She turns to Sito and apologizes for dragging him into this predicament. Sito reassures her, emphasizing that there is no shame in helping a friend. Anju notices that, despite feeling tired from their cleaning task, Sito seems to enjoy the experience. She suspects that it might be because he is usually left to clean the toilets alone, while his classmates avoid the chore. Feeling a bit bored and wanting to lighten the mood, Anju decides to drag Sito to the school swimming pool. By now, most students and teachers have gone home, leaving the school eerily quiet and mostly empty. As they reach the pool area, Anju sits at the edge, letting her legs dangle in the water. Sito hesitates at the poolside, remaining standing and cautious about their situation. Anju playfully tells him that she wants to have fun, but Sito warns her about the risks of getting caught, reminding her that being in the pool without permission could lead to further trouble. He expresses his reluctance to add to the burdens he has already caused her in the past. Curious, Anju looks at him and asks what he means by the burden he caused her. Sito explains that he feels he has been a burden during his recent illness, as it forced her to spend time taking care of him instead of focusing on her own studies. Anju, however, brushes off his concerns, emphasizing that helping him was not a burden but something she wanted to do. Anju interrupts Sito, insisting that he has never been a burden to her. Instead, she argues that she has been the one burdening him with her needs. She expresses her gratitude for everything he has done, from tutoring her on assignments to helping her prepare for exams despite his own busy schedule. Anju acknowledges that, without his support, she could have failed more than one subject. As they shift the conversation, Anju suggests that they swim together in the pool. Sito initially declines her offer, but before he can protest further, Anju playfully drags him into the water. Both of them get soaked in their school uniforms, the fabric clinging to their bodies. As they look at each other, the wet clothes create a transparent barrier, revealing more than either of them intended. Despite the awkwardness of the moment, they choose to ignore the obvious tension between them and redirect the conversation to lighter topics. However, beneath the surface, there is an undeniable magnetic pull between them, a silent acknowledgement of the growing connection that neither knows how to address. After having so much fun in the pool, Anju and Sito finally emerge, settling onto a nearby bench to let their clothes dry. They remain in their wet uniforms, enjoying the warm summer air. Anju realizes that with the upcoming summer holiday, it's crucial for them to maintain their connection. She decides it's time to exchange contact information, hoping to call and text Sito frequently while they're apart. This way, their relationship can grow stronger rather than fade away during the break. Meanwhile, Sito's friend Inuyama persistently calls him, diving into topics about women's bodies that Sito has no interest in discussing. Frustrated, he eventually cuts off the call, yearning for some peace. With the noise of his friend's chatter finally silenced, Sito shifts his focus back to his studies. He challenges himself to finish a portion of the next textbook they'll be using in the upcoming session, determined to stay ahead. Sito Arima sits at his desk, his eyes scanning the familiar lines of text. Each day, he dedicates time to his studies, meticulously working through the book. Tonight, he's nearing the end of his daily portion, feeling a sense of accomplishment as he closes the last page he set out to read. The quiet hum of his phone disrupts the silence, and without breaking his focus, he glances down to see a message from Anju. She's calling him to meet her at the nearest convenience store. Sito doesn't hesitate for long. He enjoys going to the store, mostly for the ice cream they sell, his favorite indulgence on nights like these. After packing up his book, he grabs his jacket and heads out into the cool night. The streets are quiet, but he knows the city's rules all too well. At this hour, people of their age are technically not supposed to be outside. The city enforces strict curfews, and anyone caught during this restricted time risks being reported or arrested. Despite knowing the risk, Sito feels a familiar pull toward the store, partly because of Anju. He's known her long enough to understand that rules rarely bother her. She's always been the type to bend them or ignore them entirely, dragging him along for the ride. As he walks, his mind wanders to the possible consequences, but he pushes them aside. Anju exudes a quiet confidence, as if the night curfew is nothing more than an arbitrary suggestion, not a hard-set rule. Her nonchalance contrasts sharply with Sito's cautiousness, but he doesn't say anything. They're standing outside the convenience store now, ice cream in hand, and the air around them is still. After a few moments of silence, Anju mentions why she called him out in the first place. She was bored and needed company. Sito isn't surprised by this. It's something she's done before, pulling him into her spontaneous whims. He's grown used to it. They make their way to the nearest school field, where the playground equipment stands, cast in the dim glow of the nearby streetlights. The air smells faintly of grass and autumn leaves, and the field is deserted at this hour. The swings catch their attention, and soon enough both of them are sitting on the swings, their feet gently pushing off the ground. The rhythmic back-and-forth motion feels oddly calming, as they both continue to enjoy their ice cream. As Sito swings in sync with Anju, her ice cream starts to melt faster than she can eat it. A large dollop slips off the cone and lands on her hand. Without missing a beat, she casually licks the ice cream from her fingers, her gaze playfully locking onto Sito's. Her expression shifts to something mischievous as she jokingly offers the fallen ice cream to him, suggesting he might like to lick it off her hand. Sito, his face flushed with embarrassment, quickly declines. But Anju, always teasing, leans closer as if she's going to insist, grinning as she inches nearer. In the playful struggle that follows, she loses her balance. Sito reacts quickly as Anju begins to fall, instinctively reaching out to catch her. His arms extend without much thought, his only goal being to stop her from hitting the ground. But in his haste, his hand lands in a place he hadn't intended, on the upper part of her body. The moment his hand makes contact, time seems to slow down. An uneasy realization dawns on him as he remembers something his friend Inuyama once told him about how that part of a girl's body feels strange. Sito's mind races, and embarrassment surges through him. He quickly releases his grip, helping Anju regain her balance without letting his panic show. The moment passes, but for Sito, it lingers. As they finish their ice creams and the night winds down, his thoughts keep drifting back to what happened. He walks Anju home without mentioning it, feeling more self-conscious than usual. She, on the other hand, seems unaffected, still playful and carefree, as if nothing out of the ordinary occurred. When Sito finally reaches home, the memory haunts him.